live. So welcome Rogue 20 fans, and we are here with the cannabis sessions and also Harvest and Plume. So we're speaking bluntly around things related to the hemp cannabis industry. And this is CJ, and I'm here with Kim McCarthy.
I'm sorry.
Huh?
There we go. Sorry, my volume was on the phone. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. No worries. I don't think that
off and the volume's on.
I don't think that I heard it all. So I think that we're perfectly fine. So we're here for another podcast and very excited. Today is Thursday and it is September 26th. So Kim, I know we were talking before we went live. You had a crazy busy week. So how are you?
Crazy busy.
No other words to describe it, right?
I will tell you what I partnered in on about a month ago. I never would have thought that this is where I am or what's happening or the potential beyond it. So I'm 2 days out from going to the Metamorphosis Retreat in Massachusetts, the inaugural event. And honestly, today was supposed to be nothing but you and a few things on my to-do list. What have I done? This. Everything else I've been on the phone.
Well, we shared before we went live, and for the past two podcasts, we really have shared a lot in regards to the Metamorphosis Retreat, and it's this coming weekend. So I think we wouldn't be doing diligence to the podcast if we didn't just one more time for our listeners, just kind of recap it one more time, and it's not too late to participate if for those that are in mass who want a great experience in regards to access to investors, accredited investors, and I'm taking here. I asked you to tell about, and then I'm doing it. So
you're doing a great job.
Well, Kim, go ahead and share for us, please, the Metamorphosis Retreat, please.
Absolutely. The Metamorphosis Retreat that's happening this weekend is the inaugural event of a private, exclusive event of together, all vetted in a trusted, secured environment, investors and entrepreneurs. And it turns out to be our entrepreneurs are about split down the middle between those who are economic empowerment certified and those who are, just an entrepreneur. And it's so exciting because we have deals that are already in process prior to us even showing up. But our goal is, this isn't just it. We're going to be taking it nationwide. We're very excited about all these opportunities that are coming up. And what's really cool is that you can literally see the industry changing. It's like the .com era. I mean, you and I are old enough to know what that was like and remember. It's just like going through that again, but in a positive way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that in terms of the speakers, the sponsors, and just a reminder for those that, you can go to the metamorphosisretreat.com to learn about it. Now, this is an invite event only. Is that correct, Kim? That
it is, because again, everyone is vetted. You need to know when you're coming in to a situation where everyone, even the caterer, the DJ, every single person is signing a reciprocal NDA, photo waivers, rights to represent. This is a big deal, and we're taking it very seriously, as should the people who want to attend, because the people who are already there, they know they've gone through the process and they're grateful for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those that are watching the live stream, I'm not ignoring Kim. I'm actually trying to share the live stream. I don't know why, but I'm having a heck of a time trying to find it on the page just so that people can know that we're live. I see it, but then I don't want to click on it because I know that the audio will just come blaring through. So here in a second, I'll go back to it. So congratulations. I'm looking forward to a recap of the Metamorphosis Retreat that's happening this weekend. So please take lots of pictures, and I'm sure there's certain things that'll be restricted just due to non-disclosure agreements, and that's the right thing to do. And I think that's a great little point for us to make in terms of some of the startups, some of the energy, because there's so many people who are very excited to jump into this space, whether it's hemp, cannabis, regardless of what you're doing. But just before you go sharing your next big idea with anyone who promises to bring funding or anyone that says, hey, I can do this for you, take the time to get a mutual non-disclosure agreement, do the professional aspect of it, because what you don't want is for your intellectual property to become someone else's. And I know that there's some great creative individuals in the space, in our industry. So that is free advice from Carlos. And Kim, I'm sure you can validate that as well.
Absolutely. There's a lot of proprietary information that's going to be shared, and just even through pitch decks. And we want to make sure that whomever has access to this, that they know that this is a secured environment with vetted individuals. We're serious. It's a one-day event. Do your homework for those who are registered to attend, and be prepared, because people are signing pre-deals, letters of intent, as well as letters of commitment prior to even getting there. So it's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. I'm very envious and jealous that I can't be there, because I've seen pictures of where the environment is going to be. But the next time I will be able to hopefully attend this event. So I'm gonna keep you on tab on that, Kim.
I hope so.
Yeah. But there's lots of exciting things occurring in our space, in our industry. I sent you a couple of emails in regards to some things that, primarily that caught my radar this week. And I thought maybe we could perhaps discuss some of those things. Probably the largest thing to occur this week is in regards to the cannabis banking reform, which I think that is just absolutely massive. So I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share once again, just so that I can pull that article up and we can talk a little bit around that. So this past week, we actually had the Congress go ahead and pass the cannabis reform banking bill, which, that's huge. So I'll let you go first in terms of your thoughts on it, and then I'll follow up on that. How's that?
Okay. The funny thing is, I'm an analogy person, analogous Kim. For whatever reason, the first thing that came to mind is the Sour Patch Kids. Those commercials where they say, at first they're really sweet, and then they're sour, or really sour, then sweet. That's what I feel like this is. The banking industry and cannabis and the federal level voting on this. They give us a great teaser, and we're all excited that finally people don't have to be on a cash only basis and all the problems that comes along with that. And then, yeah, I'm looking here at Mitch, and you think, but we had such promise. Come on, just a few more steps. This is
right.
Exactly what we need.
Right.
The good Lord giveth, and the good Lord take away.
Well, here's what I see in regards to the space is that I had this week, and perhaps maybe we can have them on for a podcast at some point, but Politico, which is a national publication, they're getting ready to launch what's called Politico Pro, and it's always existed, and they're actually going to do a cannabis-based portion of it. And why I mention that is because there's a lot of publications who, at this point, our industry, whether it be hemp or cannabis related, is such a huge learning curve for everyone. And what I mean by that, and I don't want to offend anyone, I know the folks out in Colorado probably are much more seasoned than a lot of individuals, but there's still this learning curve that we're all going through as far as entrepreneurs, educators, practitioners, bankers. So for anyone to deem themselves currently as the industry expert, I would challenge that, because the regulations are changing so swiftly. I mean, I'm on the pulse of it daily, just because I have to, because of what we do, so that I understand it. So when I see different news outlets cover this in terms of Market Watch, and cannabis stocks mostly lower on euphoria over banking bill fades and face of trickery, U.S. Senate path, I don't think it paints a good picture, because for those who are not familiar with the industry, they don't know the frustrations and the challenges that the industry has been through. So, for example, to open up a traditional bank account as a hemp and a cannabis industry is very challenging to do. So there's gray area, there's different names you have to do, there's a little bit of you don't want to feel like you're doing the dishonest thing, but you have to navigate through it carefully. And that doesn't even include like to accept credit cards or merchant services or e-commerce. And so in terms of bringing the cannabis banking system, this is massive. For those individuals who potentially have been in the industry as individuals. Well, let's start at the corporation first, at the business. From a business perspective, being able to be a viable banking, exactly what you said, safety of employees, from having to have all that cash only transactions, having ATMs inside your dispensaries or if you're a manufacturer or a grower, of how those transactions take place. I'm a big believer in cryptocurrency, but I'm not going to go there because it's a whole other conversation. But what I'm getting at is that allowing this industry to be bankable will then allow potential startups or even existing businesses that are doing well, that perhaps maybe they need to get a business loan to expand their operation, to purchase new equipment. Perhaps this leads to the opportunity to secure those loans to help them, which I think that's massive, and in particular to level the playing field, so that if you're not a startup that has the ability to come up with $5 million in equity to fund your startup, that perhaps you can do a sociable stake to be an entrepreneur, whether a minority or a female that may not have those resources to be able to start a business in your community and apply for a loan. So I think that's one facet of it. The second portion of it is just in terms of bringing credibility to the industry, of what we're doing, of bringing that money into the banking system to allow others to participate. I think that in terms of the trickery, I think what it involves is I agree. I want this Senate bill to pass as far as the banking. I would rather it not get red taped in terms of the legislatures, because I already see what's happening. And I completely agree. Before I say this, let me say that I completely agree. To take an industry like cannabis and hemp and bring it into the banking system, FDIC, all those things, but yet it's still an illegal commerce. It's still illegal. I get why that makes absolute no sense. So cannabis is a Schedule 1, but you're saying it's okay to bring into the banking system. I get that. Don't get me wrong, but I'd rather that be a separate process. I'd rather that be let's get this banking bill passed in the Senate. Let's allow the massive amount of companies that are currently in this space to be bankable. Let's allow entrepreneurs to be able to seek loans, for investors to feel much more comfortable that, hey, this is a regulated banking in industry, to do all that. It's going to create all those opportunities, versus the short-term gain. And the short-term gain potentially would be that that we attach riders to this bill and we say, okay, well, we need to go ahead, if we're going to do this, we need to go ahead and do the decriminalize cannabis and to take away all prior convictions. And that's something that I advocate. I truly want. We need to go ahead and just go ahead and remove it from the schedule, because we need to do this. In terms of legislatively and how legislation works, I'm not an expert, don't get me wrong, but these things get so boggled down and so heavy and nothing gets done. And that's why I'd much rather this just pass as a clean bill. And then let's go back at the table and let's go at it to do those other things, to remove it from the schedule, to decriminalize cannabis. That's my personal opinion. Kim, I know you probably have some thoughts as well, because I talked way too long about it.
No, honestly, I'm with you on all that. I, you know, I think that my first thought is on a federal level, they're trying. It's the dog trying to control the tail. At this point, we are the tail, and we're wagging so much, and thankfully, we have that we've created enough activity in Washington to start making a decision on this stuff. However, then you have the other side, and that is just from an economic and an entrepreneurship perspective. it's amazing the limitations that they put on this industry, when truly, just from an economic and a health factor, just those two factors alone, it's huge and it's highly beneficial. And to be able to withhold people from pursuing a career, a business, a startup, any of that, that's how important this banking is to everyone in the industry. For my other brand, the Pipeline Strategies, I was almost shut down completely simply because I'm considered a cannabis affiliated business. And it was a credit union. As you said, you got to find these avenues to go through, a lot of navigation. And a credit union is one of the avenues, as you know. And they wanted me to sign a legal statement stating that I will never, comma, ever. And I thought, well, that sounds a little like, Chris Rock, forever, ever. Yeah, forever. And that's what it was. I will never, ever be involved in the cannabis industry. And I thought, well, okay, next.
Mm-hmm.
And we're always looking for those opportunities just to put our money, much less to be able to have in this industry. There's a lot of regulation and licensing needs that you have to meet before even putting up a shingle. And some of these
Right.
entrepreneurs have to secure their locations. I mean, like, you're paying rent for a closed business or a business that's not even open for up to a year or more. And you got to have the funds
Right.
to take care of that.
Right.
Guess who doesn't have that?
And yeah, and that barely, I mean, we could probably turn this podcast into like a 2-hour conversation. But that doesn't even include the social impact that cannabis makes in terms of the taxation. I'm not a fan of taxation or taxes. I think those things should be voluntary, which they're not, and that's just because I'm a pro liberty and those minded. So that's why I said it could be a 2-hour conversation, but I'm not going to go there. So think of it from this sense. So you have a viable business that's paying taxes, that are paying for infrastructure, paying for schooling, paying for housing, all those things, but it's an illegal industry, and you're not allowing it to be bankable. So how much sense does that be? Does that make sense? You're talking about an industry that's actually employing people, that are giving people jobs and income, that are going out and supporting local communities, whether it's the groceries they purchase or the homes that they're renting, buying, and so forth. And so I think that's why that, like, when I see things like this, like Market Watch and how they're referring to it, it's very tunnel vision. It's not, it's people, it's articles, and no offense to whoever wrote this article, but it's people not understanding the big picture of what this applies to. Just from a perspective for those watching our live stream and listen to this podcast, same thing as a business owner. Like, for the most part, like, if you're in this industry as a business owner, and let's say, for example, that you go to apply for a loan because you want to buy a car or you want to, buy a home or so forth, your income is pretty much disqualified, being in this industry, because it's regarded as an illegal industry. And it's like, okay, wait a minute here. I'm employing this amount of people. I'm paying this amount of taxes. I'm doing all these things, and I can't get a loan. So this is huge. I mean, so I really hope this passes the Senate. I really hope that this allows, and for those that are thinking about getting in this industry or those currently involved, get ready, because we're going to see a lot of traditional investment world people who are into some of these more legacy industry, automotive, manufacturing, some of these legacy industries move over to the future economies. And the future economies has to do with the industries that we're in, Kim, and that's hemp, cannabis, the exciting things that are taking place with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's so much more that we could talk about on this. It just, I would like to mention, because I want to get this out there. I hope that they do not place a sin tax on any of the cannabis. And here's why: it further stigmatizes. If this is something that's medicine, if this is something that's healing, if this is something that continually helps, that's not a sin.
Bingo. I completely agree. Let's shift gears a little bit, and for our listeners listening to this podcast, please leave your comments. We want to hear from you. We want to know, and we're going to be doing some other things to allow people to join the live stream, to dial in and all those things, and that enhancement's coming. Kim is just learning about those right now. So Kim's like, what do you mean talking about? But it's good stuff, Kim, I promise you. So let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about this other article that came out, because I think this is definitely worth a discussion. And that is that the sky is falling, and massive oversupply of hemp, of CBD, is going to lead to a very violent market crash. It's the end of the industry altogether. Kim, what say you?
Okay. I think it's very similar to the .com era. As soon as it was legal, just CBD alone, and you see it come out in so many different avenues, venues, mediums, products, services, everything. And what you're finding out is that, oh, there's a difference in quality. Where do you get it? How are you sourcing it? And so my take on it is, um, if your CBD is from an industrial hemp, then you're going to have a lower quality. And that's more than likely. That's not an educated statement. It's like my mama says, don't assume, but I am assuming. Um, and that is that the lower quality CBDs and the higher volume coming from that. And then, you're going to find out that it's crap, and then eventually it's going to go away. But meanwhile, it's hurting the industry.
Yeah, very, very well said. I agree with everything that you said. And from a perspective of reading this, and I do this with a lot of things, but I have a tendency to, really frame a lot of these things. So whenever you see articles like this, I like to frame it up and look at it from different perspectives. So yeah, so like if you're an agriculture hemp farm, and you're growing, and you invested all this time and the resource, and let's face it, the startup costs for this industry is expensive. Just the red tape, the legalities of things that you have to go through, it makes it very challenging. So the price point of entry is challenging. So as a business owner and thinking about getting into this space, that's something individually that you have to understand, is that there's calculated risk no matter what you do, whether you open a restaurant, whether you you open up a department store, all those things, there's risk associated with that. And so hopefully those that have jumped into this space have considered about what that's going to look like in terms of the potential inventory and what that's going to amount to. It's no different than soybean and corn. It's why some of those industries are so heavily subsidized, is because we can't afford to people to not plant corn or plant beans or so forth. And so you have to look at it from that perspective, is that there's calculated risk that one has to take to it in terms of even the land that you're going to dedicate to growing hemp. So from a perspective as a business owner, then I think it takes the next step to say the vertical integration. So if you're just going to be a grower, you don't have any processing streams, you're going to be pretty much at the dependency of that processor and the number of farms that they're particular supporting, and how much they potentially will pay you for that. So I'm not telling anything new that people already don't know. So there's calculated risk associated with that. From a consumer perspective, I think it takes perhaps maybe a little bit different turn, because in terms of a consumer perspective and being able to purchase CBD products, and what you alluded to in terms of, great quality CBD products that is, chemical free, that doesn't have any type of residuals, and, properly vetted. Let's hope that by us educating the consumer, and Kim, by the podcast that we're doing and everything, that we can help the consumers to get educated in terms of the products that they're buying, because I think that that's going to yield a lot different results. So as you grow and progress as a business owner, you need to be thinking about the end user, who's your consumer. And I think the consumers are only going to become better educated in regards to the products, the things that are available. And it's also going to drive down that price structure. So I think that's a good thing, that if we can get more people that say, hey, you know what, I can't spend $60 for a 500 milligram bottle of CBD oil, but I can spend $50. I can't remember the first price point I said. But anyway, so you see where I'm going, is that I think the competitiveness is good, because that's only going to force the industry to become better. it truly is, and I mean that. So by educating the consumer in terms of things that they should be looking for, the QR coding, the testing, knowing where their hemp comes from, all those things are going to be very demanding. So is there going to be a price decrease? Absolutely. It's inevitable. It's a matter of supply and demand, right? So we didn't have the supply that we had 5 years ago of hemp, of cannabis. So the industry in itself is going to continue to do that. So as a business owner, you have to think about that in terms of how you're going to incorporate your vertical integration. And if your vertical integration is not there in terms of the end user and thinking about how it's going to be in terms of you potentially manufacturing specific products or working out particular partnerships or co-ops with those things, they're going to be a challenge to that. So do your homework to understand potentially what that could look like. And then the last facet that I want to touch base upon is just the things, Kim, that you and I have talked about in regards to the emerging potential use of hemp. And I think that in the United States, we have a very unique opportunity because we have lost so much manufacturing and industry in the country due to cheap labor, other countries, that if we spend some time to really investigate, to invest, to understand the potential sourcing of hemp and what it could bring, and then we partner within the Midwest or locally, that if we identify particular business owner, maybe there's a concrete manufacturer who has traditionally done concrete and they've always done it, and you educate them. You go to that concrete manufacturer and say, hey, let me introduce you to hempcrete and what hempcrete is and what it can do. And let me validate this with you so that you can see that this is potential. You're only helping, or you do it yourself, one of the two. You had a unique situation, and if we can't go into great details, we don't need to, but you have a particular company that's even reinventing even air filters and how hemp can be utilized. There's just so many applications, for hemp and what the viability. So if we take time to network within the communities that we operate, we find people who are, we don't have to reinvent the wheel with everything that we do. It's a matter of networking, of building those partnerships. And if we do those things, the sustainability of this industry is going to continue to grow, and it's only going to help and benefit you. So don't get tunnel vision of thinking of, me. Think big picture and how you can network, how with this industry can continue to grow, because I'm a firm believer that hemp and cannabis could lead America to a new industrial revolution. It truly can. It has that capability.
I completely agree with you. I'm looking forward to the industry coming together, hemp and cannabis, and supporting each other. Excuse me, in so many ways, just in the packaging alone. And I know we could talk for hours about that, but to me, that sounds like a no-brainer. I know, finances aside, but I think once combining their efforts and moving forward, it's just a stronger front for people to understand. Oh, it's not about the high, because it always comes back to the high.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. And you're doing some very neat things in terms of the projects and things that you're touching, as far as the medical perspective, the industrial application. And that's why it's so important for this industry and this movement to continue to be a grassroots. And that's why I support your work that you're doing, Kim, because you're trying to find a way to branch out to all these different auxiliary business units that can be created with this industry. So, so hats off to you and to the work that you're doing. I'm excited that this coming weekend that you have a very exciting the retreat that's coming up, that will be the Metamorphosis Retreat this weekend. And I'm excited that maybe next week we can maybe recap that a little bit and share some of the success stories coming up from that.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to sharing everything because, quite frankly, this is brand new for everyone. No one's ever had this before. So it's not only am I excited because I'm on I'm riding the coattails of this awesome situation, but also the industry in general. So what better time could I, excuse me, have a seat on the 50-yard line?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Kim, go ahead one more time, just so our listeners know, can you please go ahead and share your websites, your social media handles, how people can learn more about your work, please?
Absolutely. Um, all of the Harvest and Plume is under at Harvest and Plume. And on Facebook, the Cannabis Sessions is the Canna Sessions. And the pipeline strategies.com, the pipeline recruiting.com. You can always get a hold of me through either info at Harvest and Plume or K McCarthy at the pipeline strategies.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. And this is CJ with Rogue 420. So please like, share, subscribe. And we're so, hopefully you feel the energy coming from this podcast based upon the excitement for this space. So please leave comments, and because we do read everyone, and we appreciate everyone's support. And thank you for taking the time to listen to our podcast.
Thanks
And
so
Kim,
much.
until next week.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.